Hello class. In this presentation, I will be applying the psychoanalytic theory to the story of The Lion King with the approach from Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. The central idea of the psychoanalytic theory is the unconscious, although they describe it a little differently. Freud's psychoanalytic theory referred to three levels of consciousness: the conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious. And his structures of personality consisted of the id, the ego, and the superego. On the other hand, Jung's psychoanalytic theory referred to the psyche and the self, and it involves the ego, the persona, and the shadow. Jung uses the term psyche instead of personality, which means spirit or soul in Latin. And unlike Freud, he saw a balance where unconsciousness and consciousness were equal and created a balance. And the term self represents the integration of all aspects of personality. Now moving on to the Lion King characters, I'm going to start with Mufasa, and his archetype is the spiritual father. According to Jung, the spiritual father had feminine instinctive qualities with spiritual qualities of the archetypal father. In his first example, despite Mufasa's strong exterior, he was a kind-hearted king, as seen when he is greeting Rafiki with a hug before he presents his son Simba to the kingdom. In this second example, Mufasa is seen playful and unafraid to show affection, and this is shown around his son. In this last example, Mufasa, as a king and a father, is extremely wise from many years of experience and instruction. He gives Simba wisdom and the willingness to set aside personal gain in order to better the kingdom, and the importance of respect for all the creatures in order for balance to be maintained, also known as the circle of life. This next character is Scar, and his archetype is the shadow. This is the unconscious complement to a person's conscious identity, and is often experienced as dangerous or evil. We tend to show a persona to the world, and we hide our shadow by repressing it with our psyche, because it's just inconsistent with our self-concept. In this example, a few people, like Scar being one of them, have the opposite effect. They have an identity that is consciously evil, and have repressed their own positive qualities into a positive shadow. For instance, his shadow would be to be a kind-hearted, ideal king. Another term that can relate to Scar is Thanatos. This is one of Freud's terms for psychic energy, which fuels the id, the unconscious. It is a death instinct. It is a destructive force directing us inevitably towards death, the ultimate release from the tension of living. It motivates all kinds of aggression, such as, for example, war and suicide. In this example, Scar has a constant hatred towards his brother because he wants to be the king. He is so evil that he created a plan to kill his brother and his nephew with the help of the hyenas, just so he could be king. But his constant evil deeds led him to his own death at the end of the movie. The next term I want to talk about is Hakuna Matata, and it represents repression. According to Freud, repression is a basic defense mechanism that keeps threatening material such as unpleasant thoughts and unacceptable impulses in the unconscious to avoid anxiety. As an example, after Scar killed Mufasa and blamed it on Simba, the young prince ran away and found new friends, Timon and Pumbaa, who saved him from dying. and taught him the motto Hakuna Matata, which means no worries for the rest of your days. Simba lived by this, and he grew up with this philosophy until adulthood. Another defense mechanism from Freud that can relate to Hakuna Matata is denial, which means that any material that produces conflict is simply suppressed. This is exactly what Simba did. In order to move on with his life, he suppressed the thought of his painful past and kept in mind the motto Hakuna Matata, so he won't acknowledge the pain of his reality. The next characters will be Nala and Simba, and their archetype is the anima and the animus. The anima is a man's repressed or underdeveloped feminine type qualities, such as, for example, being emotional. Sometimes men can get possessed by their anima and act moody and emotional. The animus is a woman's repressed or underdeveloped masculine type qualities, such as, for example, logic and reason. Jung believes that women were possessed by the animus if they were opinionated and preoccupied with power. In this example, you can see Nala and Simba from childhood, moving on to adulthood. And Nala has always been better at play fighting than Simba, although in the second pic, this is actually a real fight, since that was her first encounter after many years and were unrecognizable to one another. She still won, and that's how Simba knew it was Nala. Nala's animus is reflected by her preoccupation with winning, and also after her encounter, she was opinionated about Simba coming back to the kingdom because they were in desperate need of saving. She was speaking reason and logic to him. Meanwhile, Simba is at a tough time in his life and is in touch with his emotions because he is confused about who he is, what to do, and how to feel. And the last character I will be talking about is Simba itself, and his archetype is the hero. According to Jung, he describes the hero as associated with the internal psychic struggle to become an individual. It also relates to the external battles with threatening forces in the world. In this example, for many years, Simba was a weak individual, living worry-free and happily with his new friends Timon and Pumbaa, but this drastic change led to an internal conflict of who he really was. But when his past came back to haunt him, he got motivated by special forces, such as his father's spirit that he came about in the clouds, to remind him who he really was, so he can go ahead and battle his opponent Scar to get his kingdom. Another term that can relate to Simba is Eros. Unlike the other psychic energy that Freud described, Thanatos, which is the death instinct, Eros is the life instinct. It motivates life-maintaining behaviors and love. In this example, you can see Simba motivates life-maintaining behaviors since he goes back to his kingdom to restore its life and balance. He also represents love, as shown in this picture with Nala. The last but not least, I want to talk about the intrapsychic conflict. According to Freud, the id, the ego, and the superego do not coexist peacefully. The id demands immediate satisfaction of drives, whereas the superego threatens guilt if any pleasurable satisfaction of moral impulses is attempted. In this example, I believe during the scene where Simba is confused about his identity, he experienced Freud's intrapsychic conflict. In Simba, the id was his depression about killing his father and being too ashamed to go back home. But Simba's immediate satisfaction to solve this depression was his motto, Hakuna Matata. The conflict comes when his super ego makes him feel guilty if he doesn't go back, because he's supposed to be the next king and protect his kingdom just like his father did. So he feels guilty. Okay, so this concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Stephanie Hart. Bye.